Good evening from New York. I'm Lawrence O'Donnell. In American politics, you can run, but you can never hide from the great, never-ending tax debate. Republicans will never let you. They believe the party of less taxes will always beat the party of more taxes as long as the voters are listening to the debate.
Mr. Reagan will raise taxes, and so will I. He won't tell you. I just did.
Because the deficit has increased so much, beyond my earlier estimates and beyond even the worst official government estimates from last year. We just have to face the fact that to make the changes our country needs, more Americans must contribute today so that all Americans can do better tomorrow.
Make the tax relief permanent. And members of Congress should know, if any bill raises taxes reaches my desk, I will veto it.
Bill Clinton's tax increase, the biggest one of all time, was preamble to a Democratic loss of the House and Senate in 1994. Democrats have feared any form of tax increase since then. Never mind that the economy soared to unprecedented heights after the Clinton tax increase helped put the budget back on track to balance. Democrats once again lost the tax debate to Republicans. Barack Obama won the tax debate in the presidential campaign, arguing for an increase only for the top bracket. But that was then, and this is now. I discussed the current state of play with White House senior advisor David Axelrod in an interview taped earlier today. David Axelrod, thanks for joining us today. David, this afternoon, the House of Representatives, they voted to adjourn in a shockingly close vote. That's never a close vote, but it was today. Speaker Pelosi had to break the tie. 39 Democrats voted against adjournment without taking action on the current tax rates. We saw some Democrats eager to go home, but there are others then eager to stay in Washington and fix this. So who's right? The go home now Democrats or the fix taxes first Democrats?
Well, the question really is, what about the hold the tax cut hostage Republicans? And that's really what this debate has been about from the beginning. We all agree, Republicans and Democrats, that we ought to extend these tax cuts up to $250,000 a year. That would take in 98% of the American people, would give the middle class the tax cuts that they really need after getting battered over the course of the last decade. The Republican Party, Mr. McConnell, Mr. Boehner have said, no, that's not good enough. We also want to spend $700 billion over the next 10 years to give tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans, millionaires and billionaires. And our position is we don't have $700 billion for that. That's not going to markedly help the economy. The Congressional Budget Office said it's the least effective form of stimulus. And yet, Mr. McConnell said if it wasn't in the bill, he would filibuster that on the Senate side. So the real issue is when are the Republicans going to sit down with us and say, okay, we agree on this much, let's get this done, let's remove the uncertainty for middle-class Americans and let them know that come January 1st, they're not going to see a tax increase.
What do you make of the 39 Democrats who sided with the Republicans on this one? Does that spell trouble when the Democrats eventually do take up this tax question in the House?
Lawrence, I don't think so. I think among those 39, you're going to find people who are very eager to end this uncertainty, to vote on that middle-class tax cut, and they wanted to be able to take action on that before they left, and I understand that, but it's very clear that we would be enmeshed in a game of cat and mouse with the Republicans over this because they're so committed to this. The thing that makes this so interesting to me is that when they released their pledge last week and talked about the things that they would do if they had control, they said we want to end the end of the Recovery Act, and half of that, half of those unobligated funds would be in something called the Making Work Pay tax cut that we implemented that goes to the middle class. So 110 million families would see their taxes go up under the Republican plan, and yet they're fighting fiercely to take care of millionaires and billionaires. And I guess that's it just underscores a difference of values.
David, you're trying to hold on to the House and the Senate in the midst of the worst recession since World War II. There's an article in the New Republic this week that came out that says during the transition, after a meeting about the economy before the president was sworn in, you told the president-elect, you predicted that his numbers would be in the toilet in 12 to 18 months, and then, quote, all of us who were geniuses are going to be idiots. Is this what you meant, that those economic numbers were going to control our politics, and the Democrats and the president's popularity and polling numbers were going to sink because of the economy?
Well, just to make one slight amendment, I'm not sure if I said in the toilet, but
no, that was not in quotation marks. That part's not in quotation marks, David.
But I did say they were going to be a lot different than they were right then, because it's look, Lawrence, you're a student of this business. You've been around it a long time. It's obvious when you're sitting with your economists and they tell you, the president-elect, we are in the midst of a recession that could be as deep as anything we've seen since the Great Depression, and there is a 1 in 3 chance we might have a Great Depression. You know you're not walking into a great political environment, and they also made clear that it was going to take a long time to deal with the damage that this had done. But beyond that, we also knew that in terms of the election itself, we had 2 bumper crops of wins legislatively in 2006 and 2008. 55 seats we won during those elections. Midterm elections, as you know, traditionally are tough for the party in power. And so for all those reasons, I felt it was going to be challenging, and it is challenging.
You know, David, that you have the president out on the road in the Buck Up and Stick With Me tour of trying to hold on to Democrats' power in these congressional elections. And we had on this show last night one of the leaders of the groups that the president's talking to, Adam Green. He's the leader of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. And he was very encouraged by what he heard in Wisconsin yesterday, and primarily because he heard the president use the word fight. And his point was he doesn't think that you and the president, when it comes to legislating, when it comes to governing, are fighting. And I guess someone has to break it to Adam Green and others that no one fights. These guys in neckties who go to work in the White House and the Congress do not fight. They ask each other to do things, and they are empowered to say no, and their outcomes are not controlled by campaign rhetoric or by the image of the presidency. Who's going to break that to the people who are disappointed in what the president's achieved?
Well, Lawrence, let me say, first of all, that on the first point, we have achieved a great deal. As I said, you've been around a long time. When you consider the things that we've gotten done under very difficult circumstances over the last 2 years, health insurance reform, financial reform, landmark education reform, doubling the use of renewable energy, putting us on that path, raising fuel efficiency standards for the first time in 28 years, and a whole host of other things, those are things that we ought to embrace, we ought to celebrate, and now we have to protect, because the Republican Party wants to roll back all of that and go back to the very same policies that punished the middle class, exploded the deficits, and plunged our economy into the catastrophe that we faced when we walked into office. So we've got a fight on our hands right now, and we need all hands on deck in that fight. That's the point the president's making. That's the point that the vice president made the other night on your show. And by the way, anyone who thinks that it didn't take a struggle to do some of these things wasn't paying attention. Obviously, healthcare was an epic battle. I don't think there's been a legislative battle like it in our generation. Financial reform was an epic battle. The Capitol was awash with lobbyists from Wall Street, and it was an extraordinary victory that enabled us to move forward with the kinds of reforms that we did, that put Elizabeth Warren in a position to do the things that she can do for consumers now, and so on. So, I think that we have a lot to be proud of, and we have a lot of work ahead of us. What we can't afford now is to have these intramural debates while there's so much at stake, and that's the point the president's trying to make all over this country.
David, it seems to me what you've come up against is the conflict between the politics of campaigning and the politics of governing. And in the politics of campaigning, you can say anything, and you can use the word fight, and you can say I'm going to provide health care to all Americans. And the politics of governing are limited by other people's interests. For example, in the campaign, where I never second-guessed you guys once balance. People would criticize the Obama campaign at different points. I never did. I was watching a flawless campaign that was running better than I could ever imagine. In the politics of governing, I think there have been some mistakes, and one of them is over-promising. During the campaign, people would say to me, who's right on health care, Hillary or Obama? And I'd say, ignore them. It is not up to them. It's up to a guy named Max Baucus, who you've never heard of. And that turned out to be true. And so what I'm feeling is that there was an over-promising in the campaign, heated rhetoric in the campaign, which can never, ever be delivered in the processes of Congress, and the disappointed base has yet to come to terms with that.
Yeah, Lawrence, and you speak from experience because you work for the chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate. But the truth is that I think the emphasis is in the wrong place. I don't think the surprising thing is what we haven't gotten done. The surprising thing is how much we've gotten done. I don't think, we've been working on, for example, that health care issue for a century in this country. You were around for some of those fights. The degree to which we were able to move on that issue, to the point where we have what I would call the Patient's Bill of Rights on steroids to keep people from pre-existing conditions from being discriminated against, people who get seriously ill from being thrown off their insurance, kids up to 26 on their parents' insurance, seniors more prescription drug protection, all of that, and the ability for people who don't have health insurance to be able to buy it at a price they can afford, all of that as part of this. That to me is something to feel very positive about. And I think it's a mistake to say, but it wasn't. It's 80% of what we've been fighting for a century. We didn't get 100%, and therefore it's not quite right. That's not that. You're quite right about one thing. That's not governance. Governance is about making compromises, but compromises that don't compromise your fundamental goal or principle. And you have to do the first in order to get things done. If you do the second, then it's not worth getting things done. I think the president did it the right way.
White House Senior Advisor David Axelrod, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Lawrence.